Good morning. Today we're bringing you a special programme on the morning of the funeral of Baroness Thatcher. I'm here beside the familiar outline of St Paul's Cathedral, which in a few hours will be full of politicians and dignitaries from around the world, remembering the life of Britain's first woman Prime Minister. The funeral will be preceded by a procession through London, bringing Lady Thatcher's coffin here from the Palace of Westminster, as Chris Mason reports.
The longest-serving British Prime Minister of the 20th century, the only woman to ever do the job. Politics will stop today to remember Lady Thatcher, a leader who changed her party and changed her country. Her coffin spent the night here in the Chapel of St Mary Undercroft, a short walk from the chamber she once dominated, the House of Commons. Lady Thatcher's family attended a short private service here. MPs and peers had a chance to pay their respects too. But just as in life, in death, Lady Thatcher provoked strong emotions. A plan to cancel today's Prime Minister's question time to allow MPs to go to the funeral was challenged in the Commons last night, and so was its cost.
At a time where we're virtually nationally bankrupt, is it right that the public should be told, not asked but told, that they must pay for a party political funeral? I believe not.
Order.
But MPs overwhelmingly voted to suspend the Commons until after the funeral. The focus now turns away from here at Westminster to the funeral at St Paul's Cathedral. It's not a state funeral, but it's certainly a big one. There'll be more than 2,300 guests from 170 countries, and amongst them 11 serving Prime Ministers. Later this morning, Lady Thatcher's coffin will be taken first by hearse and then by gun carriage through the streets of central London to her funeral service. Some may want to protest, but others want to say thank you.
She did more good for this country than she did bad, and people tend to forget that. This is the last chance they're going to have now to show any respect that they had for her, and I think she deserves a lot more than she's been given.
It's almost 23 years since Lady Thatcher stood down as Prime Minister. More than 2 decades on, as guests gather here for her funeral, she still divides opinion. But few dispute that she's left an indelible mark, not just on British politics, but the country she led too. Chris Mason, BBC News.
Well, here, just on the steps of St Paul's Cathedral, the last-minute preparations underway. That's probably the noises you can hear behind me. In fact, that noise is the machine you can see just in the background there is laying what looks like sand, because the coffin will be brought here on a gun carriage, and the cobbles here would be too slippery for the horses. So it's just been laid on the steps just in front of St Paul's Cathedral. There's quite a few people have been gathering here overnight. People have been camping. We've been talking to some of the individuals have come from various places across the UK, sleeping overnight. The weather not too bad today. It's not been too cold for them. Many people, of course, expected to line the route. Lady Thatcher's coffin now is in the chapel beneath the House of Commons. Ross Hawkins is at Westminster for us this morning. Ross, what's the scene there?
Charlie, Westminster's preparing for a day the like of which we haven't seen since the funeral of the man who took Britain through the Second World War, Winston Churchill. In about an hour from now, the flag that flies above Parliament and those that fly above other government buildings will be taken down to half-mast as a mark of respect. Later on this morning, Lady Thatcher's coffin will be taken from Westminster to begin that slow and ceremonial journey to where you are. Already there are flowers lying here in her memory. There are plenty of police waiting as well. The Dean of St Paul's has said that this will be a relatively humble service. Charlie, that may be correct, but it's one that will take place on the grandest of scales.
Ross, thank you. So security was always going to be tight for today's events, but it was reviewed again, of course, after Monday's bombings in Boston. In the last 24 hours, hundreds of police officers have patrolled the streets with sniffer dogs trained to detect explosives.
There was a high-profile police presence overnight to guard the security of St Paul's and other locations along the route the funeral cortege will take. Many roads in central London will be closed. Security checks will be carried out on people lining the procession. Earlier in the day, in the Whispering Gallery of St Paul's, police officers checked every inch of the building for anything suspicious. They have to guard against the risk of terrorism as well as the threat to public order. A number of Facebook pages have sprung up inviting people to protest at Lady Thatcher's funeral. This one calls for people to turn their backs in a peaceful and dignified way. More than 500 people say they plan to take part in this demonstration. Other Facebook pages call for more noisy forms of protest. The police say they have been contacted by some groups. They say their job is to allow peaceful protest while stopping anyone using threatening, abusive or insulting behaviour.
We have a lot to do, and we want to make sure that everything passes off safely, securely, and everything passes off with respect.
A protester could be arrested if their action causes harassment, alarm and distress for the mourners lining the route. It could be a difficult line for the police to walk. Andy Moore, BBC News.
A little later we'll be speaking to the former Metropolitan Police Commander who was in charge of policing the Olympics and the Royal Wedding, asking him what goes into keeping people safe at such big events. Right now, though, it's back to Susanna in studio for the rest of the day's news.
Charlie, thank you.